And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Jennifer Jurkofsky, psychotherapist and ET contactee who explores multidimensional consciousness. She's here today to share her experiences as a Lyran contactee and more. Jennifer, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Jennifer, what first led you to uncover your memories of your life as a Lyran being?
So the first memory actually came in a dream. I became aware that I was accessing the Akashic records. Looking back, I think I accessed them before, especially as a child. I had several moments growing up where I would tell people things about their lives without knowing how. I knew. But in that moment with that particular dream, I realized that this were actual memories of other lifetimes. So I woke up and started to write all of the lifetimes down. But at that point, I didn't realize the significance of my lifetime as a Lyran. I just thought it was one of many lifetimes that I had that I was given access to at that point in time.
How do you have confidence that a dream is a past life memory? And while we're at it, did you ever doubt it?
Yeah, I think that one of the things for me that tells the difference, I've always had very lucid dreams. I've been aware of when I'm dreaming, have the ability to shift my dreams around. And so when this one happened, I came out and like I said, I wrote it down, but then I wanted to go back and access it. And I think the difference was that I was learning how to access it in the waking world as well. And that allowed me to understand that this was more than just a dream. There was actually something to it.
I feel like sometimes I have dreams that could possibly be memories, or maybe I'm in another reality during my dream. And then most of the time it's kind of like psychobabble of just kind of dream world stuff, you know? How does
Yeah.
someone like me tell the difference between the two?
The way that it works with dreams is that we can have multiple things happening. We can, in the psychobabble world, be processing things that are happening in our daily lives, and that can come through in a multitude of ways in the dream state. But because when we're in the dream state, we are also in the astral, we have the ability to move between this lifetime and other lifetimes, parallel, past, present, however you want to view that. We can also do remote viewing in our dreams. We have the ability to explore. We do what I call world work, which if you're doing any kind of spiritual work, you can often do that in the dream state. And so to be able to really tell the difference, I think a big piece of that is what is meant to come into the waking world with you. Did this come in and how did it actually feel? How does it feel in my body when I wake up? Does it feel like it's moved something inside of me? Do I feel compelled to want to know more about it? Does it help me to understand something more in my life? That kind of tells us a little bit about where that dream actually falls in the different ways that we can look at and interpret them.
So you discovered through a dream that you had a past life as a Lyran, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be more correct to say that you were a Lyran, or you are a Lyran having a human experience right now?
You could say it that way. One of the things that came through this, so it started as a dream, and then again, I had multiple other experiences of it. It came through in meditations, and then it started to just come through in my waking state. And it really has shifted a lot for me in terms of my experience here as a human. It helped me to make sense of the personality that I'm here with, the wounds, the gifts, all of the things about my experiences started to have context in a lot of ways. And so I do think that that life and this one have become very entwined. So yeah, I guess you could say that experience is so pivotal in even how I'm developing in this lifetime, that it could be that way, yes.
So how is this playing out during your waking life?
As you said, I'm a psychotherapist, and so my work is helping people navigate their life experiences. And as I wanted to bring spirituality more and more into my work, I really hesitated to start to make that transition. Regulatory bodies, all that kind of fun stuff played a role in that. But I knew that this was a huge part of who I am and who I'm meant to be. And so I started to bring that into my work little bit by little bit. And the more I did so, the more I started to have clients come who have had different experiences and have been through different things where they're remembering other lifetimes, remembering different experiences. And it really allowed me to have a deeper understanding and to be more present with those experiences in a very different way than my field generally allows for. The speculation and the ways that people who are experiencers are often seen and perceived makes it hard sometimes for them to get support. And because of this experience, I think that has really catapulted me into another way of being able to be present with my clients, but then also in my day-to-day life. I'm more open to different experiences, to understanding where something maybe triggers a memory that is from a previous lifetime, from my Lyran lifetime. And I think too, a big piece of what came through with that lifetime was about when we decided as a, I don't even want to say race, like as a beingness to come into form, and what that meant for us in terms of how we connect with the oneness, the allness, whatever term we want to use for that, and what it means to be in the world today. And so much of my understanding has shifted because of the remembering of what it was to be in that lifetime.
For the people out there that are new to the Lyrans, can you explain who they are and what role they played in humanity's origins?
In the beginning, as you were, there was the allness, which had just this interconnectedness of energy. So some people call it by different names, but what ended up happening is that at some point there was this ability to enter into experience, and we wanted to have experience. And so this energy, this oneness, began to individuate in certain ways. And over time, it decided that it wanted to take form. And so one of the first forms in our galaxy that it took was that of the Lyrans. And so the Lyrans who settled in the Lyra constellation, they took several different forms physically, but they then began to have these experiences, what it is to be in physical form, to be individuated, while still keeping that connection to that allness or oneness, whatever it is that you want to call it. And over time, they began to seed other areas. And so we get so many of the other races. Some were here before in different systems and things like that. But a lot of the ones that are in our system came from them. And over time, they, along with all of these other races, the Pleiadians, the Sirians, the Arcturians, I can keep going with those, but each of them played a role in many planets forming and evolving and growing, including Earth. And so, throughout our galactic history, I do think that we all, in some way, come from them. We, as humans are still very much connected to our galactic lineage.
Are the Lyrans feline beings?
Some are. So some of the Lyrans are feline beings, some of them are the avian beings, so the bird-like beings, and others had golden skin, like a white gold. Then, depending on where they were after different periods of time, they also evolved like we all do and took on different colors and forms and shapes to match wherever it was they were.
Are you aware of what your physical body is like as a Lyran?
I am one of the cat-like
The
beings.
cat-like. On Earth here, do you have a natural inclination towards cats?
I have 3 cats. So yes, I've always loved cats, and I love animals in general. I think that that's a big piece of who I've always been. Um, in terms of just that kind of feline energy, I feel like that's something I've also embodied quite a lot in my lifetime. Just that more reserved, more quiet, but also able to stand my ground and express what I want, but also just the general kind of air that cats have. And I do believe that they are very connected. They see things in other dimensions and other realities. They have the ability to be in multiple places at once. And I think that that is something that through that lifetime was also able to do.
Well, what aspects of Lyran culture or values have stayed with you in this lifetime?
When I think about how things were then, some of the biggest things that stay with me and have always been with me is that desire to know that connectedness that we all have. I came into the world wanting that. My family even told me as a very young child, I asked a lot of questions about where do we come from and why are we here and what else was there, and wanting to understand more about the truth of who we are as a people. And throughout my life, which, as we all have, I've been through a lot of things that have caused me to kind of ebb and flow in my belief systems and how I show up in the world. But I always come back to this wanting to be a part of that interconnected piece and figuring out what that looks like in this lifetime. And so it's really interesting. A lot of my work, especially because I work in mental health, and so I work with people who've been through a lot of different experiences. A big part of, what I'm doing with people is helping them to come home to themselves in whatever way that looks like for them. And this really does come, I believe, from my lifetime there and understanding consciousness, understanding that it's not linear, it's layered, it's multidimensional. We're, so used to identifying ourselves with the physical body and the waking mind and all of our experiences and all of the conditioning and biases that we have been raised with, that we end up being this very condensed expression of who we are. And in truth, we exist simultaneously on multiple planes, the physical, the etheric, the astral, the mental, the causal, right? We can keep going into all of the higher dimensional aspects of our being. And so part of this work with my own experience and my own process has been not about becoming something new, but becoming aware of who I have always been and allowing that to come forward. And I truly think that that came from that lifetime, that awareness, that knowing, that understanding is not something that, despite everything I have been through, that I have learned through my experience. I truly think that that has been part of the remembering. And so my goal is to help with that remembering in terms of, understanding how do we bring in past life memory? How do we bring in the energetic sensations? How do we allow ourselves to layer our multidimensionality so that we can become coherent within ourselves? And truly, all of that understanding, I believe, comes from this other lifetime.
During waking life, do you see UFOs or do you have face-to-face contact with the Lyrans?
I have seen UFOs. I've had a few experiences of that. I saw one in town, actually, which is not normally where I see them. I live out in the country a bit, and so I often will see different things in the sky here. But I was with my eldest, and we were driving down a busy road, and there was this light that just stopped right above us in the sky. And Ray looked at me, he's like, Mom, what is that? And so we're looking at it, and then all of a sudden it just shot across the sky and then back and then across. And I was like, oh, Dean, like this is, there's something here. And as soon as we kind of acknowledged it, then it just took off and it was gone. And that was probably the first time that I remember seeing something. But then since that time, I have seen different things in the sky here. I went outside one night and, well, actually, I was sitting on the sofa and I was hearing this vroom, vroom, vroom outside. And I went out and one of the dogs was out there on the deck. And the dog just was staring up at the sky and then looked at me and looked back up at the sky. And I was like, I hear that too, buddy. And then it eventually left. As far as actually seeing beings, Lyran or otherwise, I have seen them in the non-waking or in the mind's eye, but in the actual physical, I have not had an encounter where I've been face to face physically with them.
Are you encountering any other ET species?
What I've been told as part of my work, not in the psychotherapy side of things, but in the extraterrestrial side of things, in the galactic realm, is working with the Galactic Federation, the Galactic Elders Council. It's something that I was a part of in my Lyran lifetime, and something that I am continuing to be made aware of in this lifetime. So I've been brought into different galactic meetings. I've had messages channeled through. I've been able to connect and bring, things forward. I'm part of the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, and I've been able to bring through some different aspects of a charter and things that they want Earth to be a part of and agree to before they're willing to make contact. And so I do feel like that connection is still very active, and I'm being called to do more and more of that.
What are some of those things that they want Earth to agree to?
A lot of it has to do with our consciousness level and our ability to be more open and accepting. Of course, if they're going to come in, they don't want to come in and be attacked or they want to be able to have peaceful contact. And so a lot of the charter that they want to be put in place has to do with how we need to be as a people in terms of acceptance, in terms of how we are with the planet. There are a few things that were in there talking about our own ability to take care of our planet and how we are or are not doing that at this point. So I mean, key kind of principles would be, sovereignty and peace. How are we doing in terms of collective consciousness, transparency and truth? So a lot of what is coming out now in terms of disclosure and all of that, there needs to be a lot more honesty and clarity and intention, coherence and communication, things like that. respect for life and consciousness. This is a big one because as a whole, we don't always have respect for life and those that are other than us. And so we need to work on that true respect, which involves, stewardship and empathy and protection of life in all forms. I think a lot of people often talk too about, harmony and vibrational fields, and recognizing that we do need to move into a resonance where there is a lot more coherence as opposed to the dissonance that we often feel in the world today. Sorry, they're just bringing it all back. Integrity. So there's a big piece there too about just our ethical alignments. Emotional coherence is going to be another part of it. I think that's a big piece too in the work that I do as a therapist, is just that ability to help with bringing people into coherence, and that attunement that we can have when we are more clear with who we are. We can then hold that space for others as well. Like I said, that guardianship of the planet is going to be a big piece of it. So our ecological stewardship and peacefulness throughout societies, cultural respect, inclusion, they're so different in the way that they operate from how we are, where all of the different races, even, we talk about galactic wars and all of that kind of stuff, but even still, there's a collective understanding. And for the most part, well, at least everybody that's part of the Federation and the Elders Council have all agreed that they want to operate by certain codices that they are willing to honor and abide by. And they want us to be able to do the same in order for them to have contact. And then, of course, contact protocols and things like that.
Do the Lyrans or the Galactic Council, besides the charter, have a message for humanity?
They have a lot of messages for humanity. A part of what was coming through. So with the book, The Lyran Legacy, one of the things that I was told in terms of why that had to come through and why I had to write it was that this was meant to be one out of many messages that were here for humanity to help in this process. And so their message often has to do with this awakening piece of coming home to who we are. They have tried over many different parts of human history to help us in our evolution. And we know how most of those have gone. I'm sure you've had many shows that talk about Lemuria and Atlantis, Egypt, all of those. And we recognize that there has been, different stages of their influence on Earth, and that throughout history, different things have happened that have shifted those frequencies to a point where we end up very self-destructive. And so the message now has a lot to do with why they are not operating in the same way. They're not just coming in and helping us with technology and moving us forward as explicitly as they have in the past, because they really want to make sure that we maintain the balance. And that's such a big part of their message. Even in a spiritual community, we often talk about polarity, right? We talk about how we have these opposites in the world and how we're meant to move away from the duality. But truly, that's not what we're here for. We came here to have an earth experience, right? And we're here as souls from countless star lineages that decided to come because this is one of the few realms where that extreme polarity can happen at the same time as an accelerated evolution. And when we look at the messages that are here for us right now, I think that everybody who's coming through with these awarenesses and these messages are here to bring us through this frequency transition where we're able to shift our understanding of what it is to have an experience. And so as long as we are caught up in the duality of having to pick a right or a wrong, a good or a bad, we're always going to be in that divided space. And that's not where the galactics operate, generally speaking. Like, again, I know that there's been some history there, but generally that's not where they are and not where they want us to be. And so as our consciousness is expanding, the message that keeps coming through is that we're not meant to dissolve the polarity. We're meant to find the balance. Again, it's coming back to that cohesiveness, that ability to bring both sides and maintain that alignment, that coherence, that remembrance that it's all expressions of the field. And so as we do that, I think we're going to open to a lot of the things that, say, in the charter, they want to bring forward, because we're going to recognize that it's okay to be different. It's okay to have different beliefs. It's okay to have had different experiences. It's about that openness that we are meant to cultivate within ourselves that's going to help us as a humanity to evolve.
Many of my guests talk about the ascension. Some of them will say we've already started. Some of them will say it's coming. Do you believe that we're going to be in a big shift if we're not already there? And would you call it an ascension or something else?
I think I would probably call it an alignment more than an ascension. I think when we think about ascension, we're often looking at this idea of moving out of or beyond. But we're here to have this earth experience, but we're meant to have it in alignment. And I do think that we are in a phase right now where we are moving into that alignment. But again, maybe it's just semantics when we're looking at it, that ascension is this idea for me of moving out of or beyond, when I don't necessarily believe that that's what this is. I think that as we move into this collective shift that we're in, it's about restructuring the human field towards this alignment or coherence. And so every person who remembers who they are, releases a lot of that conditioning and comes into alignment, is creating a ripple effect. And that is really what's spreading exponentially in the world. And that is what people are experiencing as this ascension.
Well, where do you think we're all collectively heading, and what's the end game?
This is a tough question for people when I answer it, only because it's not always this sunshine and lollipops kind of answer. I think that oftentimes things get worse before they get better, but that is a catalyst for change. Nothing changes when everything is going well. And so we see a lot of divisiveness in the world right now. And I don't look at that necessarily as bad so much as an experience that's meant to be a catalyst for change. And so ultimately, where are we heading? Well, we're heading towards that alignment and that unity and that ability to recognize who we are interdimensionally within a collective frequency. But to get there, so much of who we as a humanity have become needs to get broken down so that we're open to shifts and changes. And a lot of people have. I mean, if you talk to most people who've had any kind of awakening experience, they've been through something, right? They've had experiences in their lifetime that have caused some kind of a shift or a break that allowed them to look at something differently. And so as we are moving towards this new collective frequency, there's going to be different things that need to shift and break down in order for the field to actually stabilize, help us remember who we are, open and reconnect to this deeper awareness, and then move us forward.
So after this life is over for you on Earth, will you go back to being a Lyran?
Yes and no. My understanding of what happens between incarnations is that our consciousness returns to the cosmic field, to again, that all or that unified field. And in that space, all of the undivided aspects of who we are together. And so, yes, in some ways I will, because that's a part of who I am as a whole. When we're not, when we're in the body, we're operating as this focused expression of our consciousness, right? We're this, if you look at it like a single wave rising from the ocean. But between lifetimes, that wave returns to the ocean. It's part of that larger pool of our being. And so even though we can have these unique individuated expressions, we do rejoin everything and we become all of what we truly are. So, I think that sometimes, people think like, oh, well, there's this, dissolving of our identity, or there's a sense of disappearing. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I've, been in contact with people who have passed who are not yet, well, I've had them move back on again and had them take on new lives. But also in that in-between time where a part of them is still here and talking and guiding, and yet they're also reintegrated with all of the other aspects of who they are. So I'm not sure if I'm being clear, like just this kind of, right? We connect with the full intelligence, the full memory and perspective of our soul stream. And so from that state, everything makes sense in a way that's very simpler than, or more simple than what this physical plane understands.
During your nightly dreams, do you often contact with the Lyrans, and do you travel aboard craft or go to other planets?
I have, not just with the Lyrans, but with a lot of the different races. Most of the time it is with Lyrans, but again, in a lot of different ways, traveling, understanding different work that they're doing, being part of that or experiencing some of that, helping them understand, where we're at and what's going on here. They've been here and they come and check in and see kind of how we as a people are doing. And then they're, also doing that with other planets as well. And so it's been a really neat thing to be able to go to different places and see where even other, Earth-like civilizations are developing, some further along, some not where we are. And that's been a really incredible thing to experience. I think that too, when we look at what I was saying earlier about this kind of pool, this unified field, we, have different experiences. Our allness is there, and yet we can have experiences in different places. And so you talk about people who jump timelines and things like that. I think that we also have, experiences as on all of these different kinds of worlds as well. And that often shows up in the dream time too. So it's neat when they actually come in and say, hey, let's go for a ride and we're going to go see what some of these are.
Do you think that people who have experiences like you can ever get confused about which one is the dream and which one is the real life here?
Absolutely. There have been, different times where it's come in and we have these experiences in these other lifetimes and they come through. And I noticed this a lot with a Akashic record reading and things like that, where it's like, okay, what is the actual significance of understanding this other lifetime? Am I meant to bring it forward so that I'm integrating something within this lifetime? Am I bringing it forward just to have an understanding about what's impacting me in this lifetime? And so I think that sometimes we can cross that threshold where we take on more of another lifetime and then we negate the experience of this one.
Would you consider yourself an actual Lyran or a star seed, or would that kind of be the same thing?
I think that really does depend on our terminology. So as a Lyran, that is one of the starseed energies that I carry. It is the one that is the most prominent for me right now at this point in this experience. But I do believe that we also carry starseed energy from many lifetimes in the galactics as well. And so, depending on what is prominent or what energy we're meant to bring forward at any given time, I think star seeds that are here right now have connection to several different galactic energies, and we're all given what we are meant to bring forward. So for me, it's that Lyran energy, but for others, they might have just one specific one. They might have multiple that they're bringing forward. I know that I have connections with others as well, and I have ebbed and flowed within those energies. But because of where I'm at right now, and I believe what I'm meant to be bringing forward, this is really the energy that is the most prominent for me, if you will, at this time.
Do you think it's possible that you have human Lyran hybrid children?
Yes. I had an experience of actually giving birth to a hybrid child, and that's an incredible experience. I physically, the body had physically shifted for a period of a few months, and then I wasn't feeling well. I was having the same kind of pain I did when I was when I had my children, and in the physical world. And I actually was on a Zoom with a good friend of mine, and I said, I feel like my water just broke. And she helped me go through the process of giving birth. And that child, I had the ability to see those that were here, Lyrans and Arcturians that were here, and they were able to help with the process. They let me meet her, and then they took her.
And you haven't seen her since?
I have. I've had the ability to see her. There is a ship, a lot of other experiencers who have had these moments of experience have been able to go and visit their hybrid children on the ship, and I've been able to join them in having visits and things like that.
What does she look like?
This image is pretty much what I look like as a Lyran.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks a little bit like that, a bit darker in color and hue, but a little bit less cat-like.
And that is your book, right? Lyran Legacy?
Yeah, the Lyran Legacy. Mm-hmm.
Cool. What is the major takeaway you want the reader to get from your book?
The biggest takeaway that I would want anybody to get is to have their own activation in memory come back. That's one of the most beautiful bits of feedback that I have received about the book is people who've read it and they've had their galactic memory come back. It's been a catalyst for that for so many, and I feel honored to be able to have been a part of that journey for them.
If people want to find out more about it, should they go to a website or somewhere else?
Yeah, the website is starlitpaths.ca, and you can read about it. I actually had one reader put together a playlist on Spotify that goes with different parts of the book. You can read a little bit more about me. There's even a starseed guide on there if you want to check out your starseed lineage based on your astrology. It's a lot of really neat resources, and then you get to read about the book and what it offers, and if it's of interest, there's links for that.
I wasn't aware that your astrology sign can determine what your lineage is.
Yeah, it's been another kind of bit of information that has been brought in for me is looking at the starseed markers that are in our birth charts. And so using the different placements of the planets, the stars, where they are within the system of our chart allows us to understand some of those cosmic lineages that we carry forward. The other part of the Starseed Guide that was really interesting that came through. So I also do human design, and I bring in the gene keys as a way of working with my clients and understanding and doing shadow work and all that kind of stuff. And part of what came through was each of the gates that are a part of the human design and gene key system, which is taken from the I Ching. And each one of those 64 actually has connections to different starseed lineage as well. And so part of what I was given is this ability to go, okay, based on your life path, your evolution, your radiance, and your purpose, the gates that are associated with those, here's the starseed lineage and what it is that you're here to work through in this lifetime based on that connection.
Do you have the book about human design?
Do I have one?
Yeah, because
I
I
have many.
I literally had a guest today, this morning, that was telling me about human design that he was studying in Bali.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I love how one show will lead right into the next one. And I'm wondering if that's the same thing that you have studied.
It is. So I have, well, strictly human design. I think if you're talking about the book, generally speaking, this is the book that people are talking
It's
about.
probably it. Yeah, that's amazing. But I've never even heard of this until today. And you're the second person in a row talking about it.
Amazing, amazing. I actually, as part of my deep dive into human design, I did a book. It's the Human Design Coloring Book and Journal. And it's just to help people learn about human design because I will tell you this thing, it's wonderful, but it is a beast of information, right? And so depending on how deep you want to go into it, that's a great book to use. But then there's other options out there in terms of I just want to learn about myself. I want to learn and understand more about, how I operate, my mechanics, all of that.
Are there 12 different alien races that correspond to the 12 zodiac signs?
Not specifically. There's so many more than 12 races. So there's not just this one or just that one. I think it depends on, the placement throughout. So, and again, I mean, if you look at it, there's also some who believe there's 13 zodiacs. So again, how we want to split it up and differentiate, but the specific energies around them, I think it depends on the traits or the qualities that come through. So for instance, I'm a Gemini, but I'm on the Cancer end of the Gemini, whereas somebody that's on the beginning end of it may have very different traits or qualities, even though we're both Gemini. And so I think it's more based on exactly when around the zodiac you are to determine which starseed markers are there.
So being a Lyran aligns with your astrological sign.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For example, I'm a Gemini as well, but I'm like at the very beginning. Do you have
Okay.
any idea what race I would align with?
I would have to pull it up because it was such a huge transmission. I don't remember them all unless they give it to me again. Yeah. So within the Gemini, there's the Lyran, the Pleiadian, and the Sirian. So depending on where you fall in there, it would
Okay.
be one of those. But now that's just your sun sign. You also have, all of the others. So your ascendant is going to make a difference. Your moon sign is going to have their own markers as well.
Were you just channeling, or what were you doing when you were getting this information?
Checking in is what I call it. But yes, it is like channeling. I'm asking for guidance and then paying attention to what comes.
Does it come as symbols, or do you hear something?
Uh, it depends. Sometimes it will come as symbols, sometimes it will come as words. Sometimes it's just a knowing. Um, it, it, I think a big part of it depends on where the message is coming from or who's bringing it forward. Um, yeah, I get them in lots of different ways, and when it comes through as full channeling, then it's very much just the words or the energy coming through.
Who are you connecting with?
Most of the time I'm connecting with my guides who have shown up for me. Sometimes I connect with the Elders Council as well. I remember being in a meeting with the Alliance, and the Elders Council came through with a message, and that was a very different channeling experience than with just one of the guides, feeling a whole collective coming through in that moment. But most of the time, it's just with my guides that have shown themselves to me. So I have different guides that are part of the temple in Lyra. So I can go through some of them if you'd like. But Master Albion, who is one of the high priests in the Lyran temple on Vega, and often will come through. He's an avian, so he's actually owl-like. And then I have Shiba, who is a high priestess in the Syrian temple, who will also come through. And then there's different members of the council specifically that'll come through, or the council will come through as a whole.
Can you share with us what some of the other planets and ships that you've been on are like?
Ship-wise, it again, it varies depending on the different races, what kind of ship it is. Some of their ships are very organic in the way that they appear and operate. And so there's a lot more organic life that the ship is made out of. And it runs very differently than, say, a ship that is more made out of materials that we might be more familiar with, like alloys and different metals and things like that. And they have both kinds of ships. There's been, different hybrids of all of that too, right? So it's not just one or the other. A lot of them are more of that hybrid type where there's organic material as well as non-organic, and in that way. A lot of the ships are very sentient, and the way that they operate, which is it's really lovely to be in that kind of energy, because you feel connected to it. It's not just like you're driving your car down the road and I'm sitting in my car. It's like you feel that connectedness to that which you're in, and being transported with.
How do you define consciousness, and how does that relate to multidimensional awareness?
Consciousness for me, this kind of goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before, about consciousness being, layered and not linear, and that multidimensionality. And so when I think about, what does this mean in this lifetime, it's about that ability to tap into the allness. And so recognizing that there isn't actually separation in consciousness. So, when you were asking me, like, what are you doing when you tap in, that consciousness piece, if I'm able to get my programming out of the way, what remains, that observer, is the consciousness. It's the ability to sit in the synchronicity, to allow for intuitive knowing to come in. And this is where past life memory or energetic sensations, whatever it is that we're feeling from a multidimensional perspective, we're able to have more awareness of it if we are able to move into our consciousness. So consciousness is in every part of what it is to be here. Every cell in our body has a consciousness to it, but it is also very transcendent to that. And our consciousness is what connects us still to the allness that we return to when we are no longer in this form. And it's what connects us to all of the other forms that we are able to manifest. And it's what connects all of us together. And so, and you have those experiences where when our consciousness is connected, say with, family members and loved ones, where if something happens to them, you're aware if they're experiencing a certain emotion. That's our consciousness being able to connect on a deeper level and then triggering something within our current form that allows us to bring that awareness forward.
Now, you also have a podcast. What is it called?
I do. I have two. So the first one I actually co-host with my friend Tanos of Twillo Lifestyle, and it's called Twillo Talk. It's authentic spiritual conversation. We're live every Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. And we just have a beautiful community where we talk about we say we give the weather. So we talk about the Schumann, we talk about where we're at. I give the transit for that week, which is just helping us understand the energy that's coming in. We could deep dive at some point into neutrinos and what all of that means, but basically the energy from the sun is 70% of the energy that we pick up. And so I talk about what that energy looks like and how to notice when it's showing up in your experience. And then we just deep dive. So whether it's about what energies are coming or experiences or a question that somebody who's watching has, we talk about whatever is coming up and whatever is needed in that moment with that authentic spiritual conversation.
What can you share with us about what's coming in our near future? Do you see anything?
Disclosure is happening. It's on the cusp, and there's already been a lot of little bits of disclosure happening. And I think that we are moving towards more and more of that. There has also been talks in terms of the alliance with actually finding potentially a location. There's an initial agreement with where to put the ET embassy. And so that's all moving us in that direction for contact.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when you say putting the embassy, that means on this planet?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, their whole mission has been to get a physical embassy built here on Earth so that there is a place where the ETs can come and actually be welcomed and have that initial contact in a safe and welcoming fashion.
How soon do you think they'll be building that?
Their goal is to have it for 2030.
That's amazing. Do you think that there are ETs walking among us? That we don't see them?
Yes. I think that there's a lot that are here that have come in human form and are, sharing and teaching. And I also think that, there are some that are here and we glimpse them, or we have moments where they, appear and then they're not. And I think that they're doing that on purpose. It's a little bit of that ability to desensitize, just enough to get us to, be a little bit more accepting when they do show up.
All right. So you have the embassy, you say disclosures happening. Anything else coming?
There's going to be a lot more experiencers. And I know that you know from your show, there's already quite a bit out there, but those experiences are going to grow exponentially. For people who are open and willing, they're going to start to have understanding, contact, intuitive guidance, just more awareness of the fact that there are other energies around us. And so as people open to that guidance and that understanding, that's also going to pave the way both for a shift in consciousness, which is what we need for them to actually make contact, but also allowing people to be more aware of their presence and more open to their guidance and their wisdom and what they want to eventually move and help us with.
Why do we need a shift in consciousness for them to make contact?
We can't even be peaceful with ourselves, let alone be peaceful with something that is literally not of this earth.
So we need to be less violent.
Not going to work for them to come and try to make contact and have us be afraid of them and have us try to shoot them out of space. And already those that have come, I mean, disclosure is happening and we have not treated them well.
So do you think the best way for them to create this shift in consciousness is through our dreams?
I think that that's what they've been doing for a very long time. You look at, even movies and stories that have come through over the years. We've been being opened to different understandings that there is life beyond just this planet. And not all of those have come through and been taken well. I mean, we have a lot of movies and things that paint them in a very negative light, but we are finding more and more where we're able to see something different, where there is a more positive kind of understanding of the fact that they can be peaceful. It doesn't have to just be this scary invasion, but that we can potentially work with them. And as we start to see more of that happening, I think that's going to show an evidence that the consciousness has been shifting.
What does a post-disclosure world look like to you?
When I think about how life was as a Lyran, as a galactic in general, it's a very different way of being than how we are here. On Earth right now, we're very survival based, where as the galactics, it's very much about enjoying life. It's about wanting to live and experience and appreciating all that that experience has to offer. When we would work, it was about what resonated for us, what brought us joy, what we wanted to do, not because we had to pay the bills and, make sure that everybody was taken care of. Everybody was taken care of. And so if we are able to move in that direction, I think that that would make for a really beautiful world for us to be in.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how should they contact you?
Yeah, I am open to that. If you want to go through my website's contact page, you can do that. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And also, you can follow me on YouTube, and then you can, we're live when we do the Monday broadcast, so you can always pop on and ask questions as well. So there's lots of different ways to reach me and ask questions. I was saying there's a couple other podcasts that I do. So once a month, Tanis and Dr. Lisa Thompson and myself, we do a Galactic Gab. So we're live once a month for that, which is a great place to ask questions because they also have galactic experiences. And we talk often about that and what it is to bring that into this lifetime. So that's another opportunity to jump on with us and ask questions.
Jennifer, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Hello, beautiful souls. You are all here to have an earth experience. And so many of you are meant to bring in truth and resonance throughout that experience. Don't let the density get in the way of that mission. Shine your light, radiate love, and allow yourself to experience the joy that it is to be human.
Jennifer, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful conversation and experience.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.